Ladies and gentlemen, if you are hearing this, you have once again tuned into the Consequence of Habit podcast. This is your host, JT. And this podcast and all the other ones are brought to you by our friends at Athletic Brewing Company. If you have not tried them, well, hot damn, because you are in for a treat. If you use the promo code capital COH20, you are going to get 20% off the finest NA beer out there, in my opinion. And luckily for you, they put out a limited series of a hazy IPA. They call it Free Wave. And people were pissed, man. They were mad when this stuff went away. Mad enough that Athletic Brewing heard what they were saying. They felt their anger. And they have now made this a staple in their product line. You can get Free Wave, all the time, whenever you want it. So go ahead and use promo code capital COH20 after you log on to athleticbrewing.com and get 20% off your first order. Do yourself a favor, man. Have some amazing beer. Just don't be hungover. It's good for you. All right, this week we have on Mr. Spencer Ploessl. Ploessl. Spencer, I'm going to, if I had to count how many times I've had to apologize for jacking people's name up, I'm terrible with it. I apologize. This one was an experiment. I didn't know Spencer. Spencer didn't know me. I didn't know anything about Spencer other than I saw a LinkedIn post. He's a wild-looking dude. He's got just an amazing beard. And he was celebrating the fact that it had been 1 year of no alcohol. And I could just see he's got this glow, man. He was just happy. And he looked, like I said, he looks like a wild man. So I just hit him up a message saying, hey, congratulations. This is who I am. This is what we're doing here at the Consequence of Habit podcast. Let me know if you'd ever want to come on and tell your story. And he jumped at it. So there wasn't a whole lot of info about him. I didn't ask a lot of questions leading up to it. I wasn't sure I was going to go. A lot of times I try and put some decent amount of research into a guest. It may not come across in the interview, but I am trying. But I said, let's just get on here. Organically, we are going to talk, get to know each other, and hear your story. And I couldn't ask for more. Spencer is a fascinating guy. He's adventurous. He's a guy that comes from a marketing industry, specifically marketing beer. He's a big beer guy. So I love talking to people whose some of their work, some of their identity was wrapped up in beer and alcohol, but the consequences of their consumption became too much, and they made a drastic change. What I liked about Spencer's story is he still has the same friends. He's still around the same group, and that may not work for everybody, but these are the people he loved, and he didn't have to give up everything. And his life has become exponentially better since making these changes. So I hope you guys get something from this conversation. I sure as hell did. Please welcome to the podcast, Spencer Ploessl. All right, everybody. This is going to be a first time where I didn't get to do a lot of research on this week's guest, and I was going to hit him up and try and pick his brain and find out more about him, but I said, screw it, man. Let's do this in real time. So I am honored to have on Mr. Spencer Ploessl. Spencer, I appreciate you coming on, man.
Cheers, JT. Appreciate you connecting with me, man, and I'm excited to be here today.
All right, so just some backstory on how this even came to be. I was on LinkedIn. And I was going through some posts, and I think a friend of mine from Athletic Brewing, Mason, had liked a post you'd put on there, and it was you looking like a bit of a wild man with your beard and your hat and your tank top, and celebrating 1 year of alcohol free. Am I correct in saying that?
Yeah, 100%, man. 365 days, one year it was when I put out that post on February 24th of 2021. Was 365 days alcohol free for sure.
So with that, I think I just had said, hey, congratulations. And I hit you up on a direct message, and we started a conversation. And I found it interesting because you come from a marketing background, and in our conversation, you said, hey, I work with beer companies. So this was kind of a unique thing. first of all, without going too deep right off the bat, just explain what motivated that process for you, or what motivated you to step away from alcohol and to take a year off, and then really, I guess we can get into now what happens from this point on. But let's start off in the beginning and what got you there to make that decision.
Totally. So it might have been cold turkey, rightfully so. On February 24th of 2020, I stopped consuming alcoholic beverages altogether. But that wasn't just something where, it was a decision that day. It had been a long buildup, right? Of 16 years of consuming alcoholic beverages since I was, a young kid.
Sure.
And 10 years in the craft beer and beverage industry. It was something where over time, my body was just kind of telling me, and I wasn't listening to it, right? As many of us who consume alcohol don't, we get up that next morning and we're like, man, I'm never drinking again. How many times have you told yourself that?
Yeah, a lot.
And it finally was the day where I said, I'm not going to drink for the foreseeable future. Was what I told myself. I had no plan. Cause that's what I get asked a lot. Like, what was your plan? What was your structure? How did you do it? And I said, well, for me, and everyone's different. There's a spectrum of people that have addictions to many different things. In our case, currently talking about alcohol. And for me, it was something that I just didn't have a plan, because I felt like having a plan, or the day I stopped drinking alcohol a few years back, I think 4 or 5 years ago. And I did it for like 90 days, like 3 months.
Yeah.
And like I took a reset, some people take a month off or do dry January and things like that.
Sure.
But so I've taken a pause before, but other than that, the other pauses that I've taken in my life are like maybe for a week. Oh, I'm not going to drink for this whole next week or next couple of weeks, And so I got to that point where I just said, there's no plan. I'm just going to not drink for the foreseeable future. And that's the questions that I was getting asked in the very beginning was, well, when are you going to drink again? From a lot of my inner circle, right? My sphere of influence that knows me as like this craft beer guy. I've been a home brewer for 6+ years. I got all the equipment. I got a double tap kegerator in the basement, that kind of stuff, So it's just like, I have this aura and stigma around who my character already is. So a lot of people didn't really understand the, why. And the best part about it is, just like me talking to you today, and just like me putting out that post on LinkedIn that you found me through, it's just talking about it is the biggest thing, is the best advice that I can give to anybody that's in attempt to, stop doing something in their life or refrain from it, is to talk about it with others. Because if you don't, you're not going to get through it. It's not a journey that you can get through on your own. I mean, a lot of it I've done on my own per se, because I didn't like go to the mountaintops and shout like, hey, I'm not going to drink and, tell everybody about it. And even the post that I put on LinkedIn, like literally I hadn't put out any content in the world on any social channels until literally the date to date, 365 days later.
Wow. Was there a motivation behind not putting it out? Was it just like, hey, I'm going to do this on my own. This doesn't have to be something I'm putting out for the public eye, because this is kind of a personal journey.
Yeah, totally. For me, it's been, well, you hit it on the head. It's a personal journey for me. It wasn't about something that I necessarily myself needed assistance with. It was just a choice that I made and decided that instead of spending my days post-consumption on a night of partying, it could have been any day of the week. And I know there's a lot of different, there's a spectrum, as I was talking about before. There's a spectrum of consumers and alcoholism. Mine was a light switch consumer, binge drinking, partying from my high school and college days, just transitioned into my, young adult life here at the ripe age of 34 still, So my thing is like, I'm just going to stop, and it's just going to be a personal journey. And it's not something that I had intended to really share with the world or make it bigger than it was, because it wasn't anything bigger than it needed to be. I just was done being hungover. And that for me was the issue. Right. My issue was, yes, I would get intoxicated and blackout and all that kind of stuff. But my real big issue that I was struggling with was the fact that I was hungover for not just like the next day feeling like trash, and then 2 days later, I'm okay. Like it was 3, 4, 5 days later. And then what would happen was, by the time that I had quote unquote recovered, it was Thursday night of the following week. and I was going out to happy hour with coworkers, and I was socially there, ready to tie another one together, you know?
Back at
so
it. Yep.
I made it, like I said, like we stated, I made it a personal journey, and it's just something that even now, like what's crazy about that LinkedIn post that I put out, I mean, it's reached over 80,000 people from a views standpoint, you know, and like, I wasn't looking for any recognition. That's not the goal. I was just sharing content on my only social platform that I'm on now. And we could get into that too, but you know, I'm only on LinkedIn, and I just share content that resonates with me first. And it was something that I met a milestone in my own life that I felt it appropriate to share with others. And because it resonates with me in my journey. And I thought that was big. I didn't share the 1 month, 2 month, 3 month, 5, 6 month. It was just like, wow, 12 months without alcohol. That's big, especially from a guy that like has been in the beer industry for as long as I was. And like, I just love craft beer in general and the whole aura around it.
Can I give you why I think that post is doing so much? And there's zero science. This is just my own. So you come from you're a lover of craft beer, right?
Yeah.
And this is, and I'm going to say this, and I mean nothing negative about it, because this was me also. I was a big mountain biker. I love mountain biking, and craft beer is big within the community. Mm-hmm. You have a beard, you've got long hair, you're into craft brew. That's an identity kind of wrapped up in, and it was for me. And there's a lot of people in these communities, Spencer, that I think don't feel, I'm trying to get my words straight. I just know within the lovers of craft beer, mm-hmm. just because you drink really good beer doesn't mean you don't have the same consequences of alcohol as the guy drinking, you know, the cheap shit. So, and I used to trick myself with it. I would I'd go up to Vermont, and the big one out here for a while was in Vermont. If you could get like Heady Topper, that was like, I mean,
hell yeah,
that was it. And I would come home. I came home with a couple cases of this stuff, and that's potent stuff, man. I mean, you take a couple of those, and you know it. And I would I got to drink this stuff. It's going to go bad. You know, this is fresh beer. This isn't meant to be kept. So I'm like, I'm drinking the best beer in the world. I can't have a problem. Mm-hmm. As if I wasn't just as drunk as if I'd gone down and picked up a 12-pack of Schlitz and pounded it. So I think, in my opinion, people see that post. They see a person and who has come out and said, "Hey, I stopped drinking. I did it because there was consequences. I had a reason behind it, and I'm proud of it." And there's a lot of people that need that, man. They really do. They need that. They don't associate with what society has traditionally said somebody looks and sounds like with a drinking problem. So, I mean,
totally.
I say good on you. You should be proud. You should seriously be proud.
Cheers. Yeah. Cheers, man. I appreciate it. I also, the perspective that you're coming from there. So what's interesting for me is that this journey currently in the last 12 plus months now, it's been less about the elimination of something and more about the addition of all of these other things that I wasn't able, you know what I mean? So that's the weird juxtaposition here, because the average, and I hate to lump people under a blanket umbrella, right? But the average person looks at, whether you're a consumer of alcohol or not, at alcohol as the stigma of, if you have a problem with it, you need to get sober. And I don't necessarily believe that that's the case blanket term, right? I think sober has a stigma to it in itself. That's why I don't even use the word sober for myself, because I mean, I'm not sober. I'm just alcohol free. Yeah. I'm just not putting something in my body that I was before. But now, like, that's the thing. I have so much more time. It's more about the additions of life than the subtractions. And yes, I've subtracted alcohol, but I've added all this other stuff: mental clarity, mindfulness, focus, I mean, you talk about mountain biking. I mean, I'm a mountain biker too, dude. There is no way in hell I would have been able to take a 31-day work from anywhere road trip in August of 2020, living out of my Jeep Wrangler out west, 12 states, 9 national parks, 6,700 miles on my Wrangler, mountain biking, working along trout creeks in the Sawtooth Mountains of South Central Idaho on an email to a client. You know, you just don't have that when all I used to be focused on was this aura around this identity that I had, who was this craft beer guy, right? I've been in the industry. I'm a home brewer. I got all the equipment, like I said. And like, what did I do? What was I hungry for? I was hungry for the next cool heady topper that came out.
Sure.
Talking to my buddies. I was hungry for the next brewery opening or the next big beer release or the next beer festival or whatever it might have been. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with those, because you know what, still to this day, I think all that stuff is super, super, super cool.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love craft beer and the whole, like even down to the ingredients. I grew hops in my backyard.
Yeah.
I mean, that kind of shit. Telling you about this 31-day road trip I went on. I mean, that's a whole separate podcast, to be completely honest. But I was in places. I mean, I was in mountain biking towns. I mean, I literally, before I left, 10 best places to mountain bike in the United States of America, I was going to hit 8 of the 10 on that list. And what do you do when you go there? There's breweries there. There's pubs there. Sure. I found myself hanging out at local breweries, grabbing some emails, doing some client video calls, working on some branding and design work stuff while I was on that road trip. And I was in physical breweries. And a lot of breweries aren't in the non-alcoholic or alcohol-free space yet. Some are. I know you have some seriously great ties with Athletic Brewing Company. I praise those gents over there. There you go.
I got one now in front of me.
Yeah, I praise those folks over there. And, you know, like I'm saying, I was just in these breweries because it's still part of who I am.
Yeah.
I love the space and place and the community and just like what it does. And I also come from, I mean, I'm born and raised Wisconsinite. What do people think? Cheese, beer, synonymous, right? So I'm part of that stereotype, and I lived it like to the nth degree.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I love the community as well. You know, it's not, I didn't want to give it all up. You know, I still love going to breweries. I still, I don't actually I don't go to actual breweries as much, but like a brew pub or like Two Stones Pub is a big one near me. And I love going there. And I'm fortunate. Well, I'm trying to get them to start carrying Athletic, but they have Brooklyn Lagers, non-alcoholic. So they have some alternatives for it. And I still love it. I still love the taste of it. You know, the difference was I used to drink it for the taste. I started for the taste. And I kept drinking it for all the other stuff. And that's what I tell people. They go, well, you know, how do you, like now, do you drink them the same? I said, no, I have 2. And then I stopped because all the bad decision-making, all that stuff, like that part, my body says I'm good. I don't need it anymore. I said, so it's completely different. And Spencer, you mentioned the stuff that, you know, you've given up, yet the flip side of that is all of these other things. And I think it's such an important perspective that people come to me like, hey, how did you do it? Or man, that must have been really rough. And there was aspects of it that were because it was so ingrained in my life. I was a daily drinker. I wasn't a blackout. I wasn't get drunk, but I drink every day. But the perspective is, now you're being kind to yourself. You're being kinder to yourself now than you were before. You're allowing yourself to have experiences, fulfill potential, do amazing things that you sacrificed for the taste of a really good beer. But at that point, you know, at some point you gotta ask yourself, is the juice worth the squeeze? And I'm going to guess that the life you're living now is better than the one you were living before.
I mean, it's hard to say from my perspective that I regret anything, and I'm not going to say it because I needed to go through all the things that I went through in my life up to that point of deciding to refrain from alcoholic beverages to know who I am today.
Yep.
Right. So you're totally right. I have never felt this alive as a human being on this planet ever in my 34 years of existence.
Hell yeah, dude. That is great.
It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. Now, I have to say with that though, I haven't gone to the degree that is shunning the opposite though, like
What do you mean?
some individuals that might have a level of alcoholism, they have to look at it as the negative. That's bad. I can't associate, there's some people that go way far, and I don't think I've gone to that degree, because people that consume, people that drink, like, it's totally fine. And I didn't have such a problem with it. And it's hard to compare because I'm not comparing, but I'm just comparing to myself. Like, I didn't have an issue with it to the degree that I can't be around it. I can go to a bar, I can go to a brewery, I can go hang out with friends that are partying and drinking all night long, and I can hang with the best of them. The thing is that during the whole time of consumption of my life, I knew I could have a great time all the time. I did. I knew that it didn't take the alcohol to have a good time. I'm full of life. I'm full of energy. I have a lot of energy. I have a lot of passion, and I'm like just naturally just a really over the top, crazy kind of dude in this world.
Yeah.
Alcohol just like fueled that, right? It really just like was the fuel. It just kept me exploding in social situations and scenarios. So I knew I could have a good time. And all that was now in the last 365 days was just the practice of knowing that you could do all of what you did in life without the alcohol piece.
It's a really important, it's an important part of the journey. And it's one of the questions that is asked the most of, like, well, how do you, do you still hang out with, because a lot of people, especially heavy drinkers, and that's not even fair to say, people who you surround yourself with like-minded people. So you're surrounding yourself with people who enjoy good beer. A lot, I'm going to guess, Spencer, that a lot of your social life was around some of these same things, and you're able to handle those situations. I've been able to handle those types of situations, but some people can't. So that makes that part of that journey much harder, because they have to really be away from it.
Yes.
So, but what I think that the most important thing is in a non-judgmental way is to recognize that everyone's journey is completely non-alcoholic beer. For some people, it's a complete trigger. They don't touch it.
Yep.
They want nothing to do with it. Some people smoke weed still, and they go, "Hey, the alcohol was a real problem, but this is still some." And I don't judge. Hey, listen, that's you, man. That's and I'm right on board too. If somebody still drinks, even it's not my place to say you have a problem. If somebody told me I had a problem before, if anything, I would push against that and and show you all the reasons why I don't. So
exactly. You're not going to listen to that, right? We didn't want to be told that we had an issue. Like, probably did to a degree, but we had to come to that own realization on ourselves. Just with anything, it doesn't matter what it is. If you're a car collector and you have 15 cars, you probably have a problem.
All right. That's so important.
But nobody's going to tell you that you have a problem, because you're like, no, I can spend my money however I want, and I'm going to collect cars any way that I want, no matter what the price that they are. It's your own self that has to come to those realizations in the end of it. So what we were kind of talking about there is, like, I know there's people in my personal sphere and in my life that have problems, that know they have a visible problem with alcohol and consumption. And you're talking about, they do have triggers. Going to a bar, that's a trigger. They don't want to go associate themselves and hang out there, because that's not a good time. Consuming non-alcoholic or alcohol-free beverages, also a trigger, because that's just an association with what kind of times I used to have. And I want that still. And I have such a hard draw towards it that doesn't help me. Now, for a gentleman like myself, and I would probably lump you in on my same bandwagon, I was a social consumer. I am a social being. And it was about having something in the hand, 12 ounces in the hand, let's just say, and just drink. Like, you never knew. By the time that one was, almost gone, the next one was already there replacing it. So I've had just me personally, my own journey, I've had a fairly easy transition, luckily, because of the Sharps and O'Douls that have now taken a huge back seat to what is, Well-Being Brewing Company, Athletic Brewing Company. I mean, Sam Adams is now coming out with stuff.
Lagunitas, a lot of them.
And there's tons of like Fair State Brewing Company has Hyper Cold, and Eastlake has their vegan milk stout. And dude, I can just keep going on and on. I've had this like synonymous transition, this seamless transition of that 12 ounces in my hand, because I'm chasing good quality flavor. And I know the ingredients, and I love, like, just like we talked about, I love all the things that surround that 12 ounces of liquid, or whatever, the liquid in the glass. And I've had this seamless integration between an alcoholic beer and a non-alcoholic beer. And luckily I'm in this period of time where in the last 12 months, I've honestly probably tried over 100 different alcohol-free beers. And now I've even started dipping into the spirit realm with Ritual and Monday and things like that. Once again, going back to the stereotypical Wisconsinite, brandy old fashioned, dude, that's my jam. Brandy old fashioned sweet with the orange muddled cherries. Yeah. Like, hello. So I was chasing after that flavor profile. And yeah, did I love consuming to get a little buzz on, get a little wild, get a little crazy, have a good time with friends and family and whoever? Of course, let loose. But at the same time, I'm now chasing after the flavor profiles. So it's a whole different mentality. And I've found, some of those old fashions have found the ability to make some of that stuff. And then with the beer idea too, it just like regular alcohol filled beers, there's a spectrum. There's ones that are not that great. Yeah. And there's ones that are really, really good. Heady topper, sought after, right? On the flip side, with the non-alcoholic space, there's also some not so good liquid being produced. Oh, yeah. And there's also some really good liquid being produced. I mean, I'm from Waunakee, Wisconsin, which is 5 miles north of Madison. There's a brewery called Octopi, and they're a contract facility, and they have a brand that they brew out of there called Untitled Art. And the two co-owners, one of Funk Factory and then of Octopi, they came together to create this brand, and they've been doing some amazing stuff in the regular alcoholic space. Well, they just released in the last year or so, they have three. They have a chocolate milk stout. They have a Florida Vice that's kind of like a sour. And then they just released a juicy IPA. And I've been on this journey to find the hazy, juicy, delicious amazingness. Like, I've had some stuff from Athletic, right? Like Free Wave got really close to that for me. Yep. But the juicy IPA by Untitled Art, their NA version, finally was like the shining crown. It took the cake on all this, literally over 100 plus NA or alcohol-free beer. And I got sent a 12-pack sampler of stuff from Europe from somebody that I met just online. So I got to try some stuff from across the pond. Yeah. And I literally, and there's some great stuff coming from over there, because they've been in the alcohol-free space and that sort of mentality for a lot longer than we have here in the States. Sure, yeah. But dude, if you get a chance, or maybe I just need to send you some. I have some in my fridge, in the beer fridge downstairs. Yeah. Some Untitled Art. Juice IPA. It's like literally. So I have all my beer buddies, right? Like a couple weekends ago, I was up at a cabin in northern Wisconsin, and it's just what we do. We snowshoe in a couple miles. We pull all of our gear. There's no running water, no electricity, and no cell phone service. It's not a cabin. It's a shack. Let's be honest, an old deer hunting shack. Right. And we go in and we play euchre all weekend long, and we just drink. That's what we've done for the last few years. Well, this year I'm not consuming. So I brought all these non-alcoholic beers. And of course, everyone I pour, I'm making these guys try them, because they're beer guys. They love beer. And they're like, wow. Like like doing the lineup of the juicy IPA against a couple other hazy juice bombs. They had no idea. Like, you tell me which one doesn't have alcohol.
Oh, you can't. You
can't tell me.
Yeah, right. So that's the way it is. And I joked around when Athletic Brewing was doing their dry January, and they had like their dry January survival pack. And I would see people post, "Hey, like, look at me, I'm doing dry January." I'm like, big deal. In today's day and age, like, when there was nothing but O'Doul's or seltzer water, that to me was like, wow. But I'm like, now, and obviously I'm joking, but the transition now is, what a great time. What a great time for a fan of good beer to make that change. Or even if you are somebody that drinks, I say this, and when I read a spot for Athletic, whether you don't drink or you just have to drive your kids to swim practice or do something, you got a meeting the next day, you have an opportunity to still consume like what I consider an amazing product, a great beer, without the negative side, which, and again, it's not always negative, but for me it became so. Yeah, it's a great time to be a fan of good beer and also decide that you don't want the alcohol. So it's exciting, man. Yeah. It's really exciting.
It literally is an exciting time to be alive, especially in this space. Mm-hmm. Like even for someone that, I mean, I think Bill from Athletic, he talks about this, the idea that maybe person that doesn't want the, after effects of consuming alcoholic, beers, could have, they still miss their like really, really good one. Let's just keep using Heady Topper as the example. Sure. Like you want to go have a couple of Headies? Sweet. And then towards the, after that, maybe you're switching. Maybe the next 6 beers you drink are NA stuff, yep. I mean, I'll mow my lawn. I get done at the end of the day and I would love to have a PBR. Well, now I can have an NA PBR and I'm still in the same mindset. I'm still having that ice cold. It's still a beer. It's still brewed, it still has the same ingredients. It's still a brewed beverage. And like, there's no difference.
Nope.
There really is no difference. The biggest difference, there is a difference. There's a huge difference. I'm not getting hungover the next day after having 6 PBRs after mowing the lawn.
I mean, it's exactly right. And that's what I tell people too. I said, not just that you've got the hangover, but the rest of your day is probably shot. Like whatever, the rest of your day. And then if you have to do anything, you're truly putting yourself at risk of, I would tell guys this all the time. They would clown me at first, and I've probably said this 5 times on the podcast, but I would get clowned for going to the bar with my buddies and not drinking. And sure. And this is specifically before I started drinking NA beers. And and then those same people, when nobody was around, would come over and they would say, "Man, seriously, dude, how are you doing this? Why are you doing it?" And in full transparency, when I first got started this process, it was, I had and still have things that I still need to work out for reasons I liked escaping life, right? So I started going to, I went to the rooms at first, and I still go every once in a while, and I would tell people all the reasons why I don't drink. I go, look, if I'm getting on the highway right now and I'm sitting in traffic and I get rear-ended, it's my fault. Because I've had 4 beers. It's going to be my fault with it. When I'm in the back of the police car, doesn't matter if I'm going to be in trouble. And then there was just things like, I come from a long line of drinkers. Yeah. My kids see me doing the same thing. There's a reason that these things kind of follow down through generations. There was all these other things. So I said, hey man, so I actually, it kind of compromised me as a father. I made, I could be making poor decisions that affect my family and all these different things. And I go, so I stopped and I went to rooms and they're like, oh dude, that's like extreme. You went and you like got help? They're like, dude, I'm like, did you hear all the other things I just said? Like all of the basic things in life that you think you are, as far as an employee or what a business owner, all these different things. So there's just, sorry, man, I'm going off on a tangent on, but I think it's, because I would do the same thing. I'd be out mowing the lawn. I would be out doing heavy work, come in and a cheap beer and slug it down like it was water. And it was great. And I still do it. Just like when I pour a good, like Free Wave is probably my favorite one from Athletic. I still smell the hops in it before I take the first sip. I do the same things I did with all of the other ones. And I still enjoy it. But was there any point when you first started that you had to question to yourself whether I can do the two, can I drink these and still not be tempted enough, or did you were pretty resolute with the fact that I think I'm okay with this?
Oh yeah, I had no doubt in my mind. Good. I had all confidence that I had no need to go back to it. Yeah, I was drinking the alcohol-free beverages. I knew these, it wasn't a replacement. I didn't use them as like a necessity to continue my consumption.
Yeah.
It was just interesting. I
Yeah.
used the non-alcoholic and alcohol-free beverages as a way to just keep exploring something new. I get super hyper focused and shit that I love, and I just go all in on it.
Mm-hmm.
Clearly, craft beer is one of those. Mountain biking, snowboarding, playing hockey, growing fresh vegetables in my garden, my Harley, riding that, whatever, all the things. Going on not just going mountain biking for the weekend, going on a 31-day road trip to that picture of. I'm looking at it on my LinkedIn profile now. That picture of my 365 day post with me, like my you said, your hat and your beard and your hair and the peace sign, like that's literally the super alive guy after not having alcohol since February until August, and that's me on my 31-day road trip in my Wrangler.
It's such a great picture, man. I mean, I don't like, we've never talked to each other. We never met each other. That picture though, it says, man, I'm alive. I actually showed it to my kids right before I walked down there. They said, who are you interviewing? I said, to be honest with you, I don't even really know the guy. I said, his name's Spencer. I said, he's celebrating a year not drinking. So this one's going to be kind of different because I don't know him. And I show him a picture. I go, he looks like a wild man. It looks like he's gonna be fun to talk to. And they're like, yeah. So it's fun. I think that's another reason is the picture, dude. It screams, I'm doing good. So
Yeah, man. It's so that transition that you're talking about, I knew when I decided it was a decision, and it wasn't like, oh, I'm just going to try this for just, honestly, it was like for the foreseeable future was the answer. People now from that post ask me like, what was your secret? What was your plan? What did you do? How many days were you going to go? And I honestly said that there was no plan, because if you plan and you put a date stamp on it, all you're doing is setting yourself up for potential disappointment. No. Some will earn the 60-day mark. Some won't. And they'll be disappointed because they went 23 days and they needed to have that beer because of something in their life or whatever it might be, the reasoning. But I didn't put a plan, foreseeable future. And people now from that post, I've had a lot of people come out of that woodwork and they're like, well, do you think you'll drink again? And I'm like, well, there's no plan. Yeah. I'm still in the foreseable future.
Yeah. And that's important, man. That's a really important thing to say, because I get asked all the time. There's one or two questions. It's, yo, are you still not drinking? Or are you drinking yet? It's one of those two. Mm-hmm. And I take that back. The third is, same as you. Do you think you'll ever drink again?
Yeah.
I feel resolute in saying no. Alcohol just doesn't play a role in my life anymore. And it gets complicated just because it's got so much baggage within my bloodline, and there's a lot of other things tied into that. So it's not just like my own personal thing. It's like I'm dragging I don't know how many generations behind me, but
dude, same. I'm with you.
Yeah,
I'm the same. Generations of alcoholism in my family, and growing up as a kid and drinking, and even my own mother, watching me grow up and just drink all the time as just like a college kid partying and hanging out and drinking beers just because that's what my life was. I look back on it now and can see the visible concerns, and it stems from a lot of lineage too. And watching her own mother or my dad's father, stuff like that.
Yeah. So. Yeah. But I completely get it, man. It's almost like people are waiting for you. I may be overthinking this, but what my experience is, and I want this to come across as non-judgmental as possible, because I don't mean it to be judgmental. There's a lot of people that would there's a lot of people that like to be on the same path and that just haven't gotten to that part in their life. And I do think the people that truly love you are probably extremely happy and proud of you for what you've done. And then there's a flip side of people that probably wouldn't mind to see you drink some beer with them again, because it's a harsh reminder to a lot of people when you don't drink that you've made this decision And since then, Spencer's gone off to do all these great things, that the potential's there for them too. And they may, it definitely, I think, makes other people start to reevaluate their own relationship with whatever. Like you said, it could be buying cars. It could be, and I tell people this all the time. I go, just for me personally, alcohol wasn't my only addiction. I liked escaping my own brain. So that can come in a lot of different forms for a lot of different people. It could be workaholics. It could be drugs. It could be porn, sex, alcohol. There's a million, there's a vice out there, so, but it does, when you're doing that, it does have other people start to reevaluate their own life, their own decisions, their own path, and which I think is a positive thing overall for everybody.
It really is. And the two sides of the coin that you talk about, those individuals that are like super happy for you, and those other individuals who might have not come forward, but you know them. I know them. Mm-hmm. I know I have friends and, close people in my sphere of influence that would love if I just would say, hey, want to go get a beer?
Yeah. They'd be like,
want to go to the local brewery or whatever, even friends that I've homebrewed with. Like my homebrewing equipment is collecting dust.
Yeah.
And I can't get rid of it because it's such a part of who I am still. Uh-huh. And not that I can't attempt to brew some NA stuff, but at the same time, I already know from all the research and reading that I've done, it's very difficult to brew some of the likes that come out of the membrane technology that our good friends like,
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's really hard to brew the same stuff that we're drinking, at least the top tier, non-alcoholic and alcohol-free beers that we consume. But, like I have buddies that I brew with that, like, not that I'm not friends with them, but like that was our thing. That was our connection. Yep. And we don't hang out much anymore.
Yeah.
And this because that was the mutual, that was the connecting piece. So
that's what scares a lot of people, I think, too, is like, circling back to, you surround yourself with like-minded people. A lot of people's friendships and their identity within their friend group is associated with that. I still have all the same friends. I may not hang out with some of them as much, but because that was what we did when we were together. That was a staple within, that was the dynamic. Is like, hey man, we're gonna tie one on when the wives aren't looking, and try and fake it when we get home. So, but like I said, all the other stuff that comes along. I mean, this project that I'm doing now, which is now morphed into a nonprofit. There's so many things that I know would not have been possible if I was still in the same place I was 2 years ago. So February 4th was my 2-year mark. So our anniversaries aren't too far off from each other, but
20 days apart. Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah. So let's get into your work stuff, man. What is it that you even do for your daily job?
Yeah, sure. That's interesting. That's an interesting way to put it. Not that you intended to put it a certain way, but like the daily job concept. I have a whole different concept of like what work should be nowadays. Uh-huh. It should be synonymous with life. It shouldn't be friction filled. Too many of us in this world go to 9-to-5s or whatever to whatevers, and we sit inside of a building or whatever it might be. Not that that's bad, or people, there's a necessity for certain types of work, but I've been in the line of work long enough where like I've been sitting in an office looking outside of that window on a beautiful summer day going with my coworkers saying, man, I wish we could be outside. Don't you feel like you're just wasting your life in here and we can't just enjoy that? So I've totally flipped this idea of what work is and what work means to me. So right now I'm an independent marketing and creative consultant. I've been doing freelance work for, 15 plus years, and I've worked many different jobs my whole life, held lots of different titles. My most recent adult career here in the last 10 years, I'm in the digital space. I have a Bachelor's of Fine Arts degree in graphic design. Uh-huh. I've worked at agencies. I started a web design and marketing agency when I moved to Minneapolis and Twin Cities here in Minnesota with a buddy of mine from college. We grew that for 5 years. We split ways. I went to the brewing industry as a marketing communications director at a local brewery in Minneapolis. And I went back into the agency world, and I left the agency world again and came and went into the franchise restaurant industry space. Wow. So Yeah. It's kind of crazy all over the place. But in that journey, I learned a lot, soaked up a lot of knowledge, but the underlying story was I was still doing freelance work inside of that. In the last 5 years, taking on 3 to 5 clients under my wing in all different capacities, building websites, doing brand identity work, as well as marketing and brand strategy work is my big pieces now. Well, I turned that after, I stopped consuming in February, and I was laid off from my corporate restaurant gig in March of 2020. And it was a big shock. But I mean, the restaurant industry took a huge hit with our global pandemic at the time. And I didn't know what to do. Just like anybody who would get laid off permanently wouldn't know what to do. You're freaked out. How am I going to pay my bills? You're trying to scramble, trying to think about applying for jobs. But I did for 2 weeks. I literally sat right here in this very spot. And for 2 weeks, I was working, quote unquote, at this computer for 10 to 15 hour days, just scouring, networking. I mean, I tell people I literally went to the corner and took the broom and just ruffled up all the dust bunnies in the corner, which was the metaphorical network. And I just started literally it was three plus Zoom meetings or video conference calls a day. And I'm not talking primary and secondary ring network. I'm talking tertiary and quad ring out people that I'd never met. And I was just talking. All it was just talking and meeting people with no strings attached conversations to just see if anything would amount sometime later within a connection piece. You know how that happens. It's just interconnected humans. And since doing that, then I did that for a few weeks and then I was burned out. I burned myself out. So I took a pause and reflected. I started practicing yoga, 60 to 90 minute yoga sessions every morning, maybe with some mindful meditation sometime in the rest of the day, totally just centering myself and aligning myself with the world and our natural space and, just getting my head right every day. And, I came to a realization point that I was trying to convince myself to not go out on my own and just keep my side hustle as my side hustle, just take on a few clients a year, And I was trying to go against the grain. So then when I realized, oh man, I should just ramp this thing up because I've been doing it for 15 years. I know how to talk to people. I know how to sell myself and the things that I've done. I know how to talk about brands that I've helped build and companies and organizations I've helped work on and for, and, increase bottom lines and whatnot, that I was like, well, I'm just going to take the side hustle and make it the full-time hustle. And that's what I did. So now I'm just an independent marketing and creative consultant, and I work with people on their brands to take them to places that they've never seen before. That's kind of my mantra. I help take brands to places they've never seen before.
That's cool. That is very cool. Do you think you would have had, and you can honestly, answer this one way or the other. It doesn't really matter, but in your mind, do you think that you would have been able to pull this all together, or at least had the intestinal fortitude to make that leap 370 something days ago?
No, definitely not.
Yeah.
No, I was so clear headed. And that was only, I stopped consuming February 24th, and that was only literally March 30th, I got laid off. And then it was literally 45 days after I stopped consuming. And I was already, beginning to feel the effects of how focused and clear I could think in my world around me. And I was able to make that rational decision to say, I'm going to kick this thing up a couple notches. I got lucky. I'm lucky in the fact that I know a lot of people during this pandemic have tried to start their own things and starting off and doing their own businesses and And I commend anyone and everyone that has done those things. But also when people are like, what are you doing? I'm like, oh, you're starting your own business. That's great. I'm like, well, this isn't new. Right. This is a block that I've been around for over a decade, So
you're just transforming.
What's up?
You're just kind of transforming where the paycheck comes from. It's the same thing. It's just,
Yeah. So it's not like it's a new venture. It's not like I'm starting from scratch and okay, I'm going to do my own business. I'm going to be my own consultant. It's well, I've been bringing in client work for years. I can do that. I just got to like I said, I just got to crank it up to 11. And if there's anything that I know how to do when I put my mind to it is crank it up to 11.
Mm-hmm.
We're here talking about how I cranked up alcohol to 11.
Yeah, right. I'm capable, right?
Yeah, totally.
Were you concerned at all? Because your job sounds like it comes from the creative parts of your mind.
Mm-hmm.
Did you feel there was a connection to that sometimes maybe doors were opened through alcohol or something that may have not been before? Did that worry you at all when you stepped away from it?
Yeah, I could say, I mean, I thought a lot about like what this is going to mean for like clients that I'm going to be able to make partnerships with,
Mm-hmm.
or people that I'm going to be able to network back to that I've met through all of my years of, in the craft beer and brewing industry, and just the connections I've made. So definitely, yeah, I thought maybe some doors would be, but you know what, what's funny is like, even thinking about the doors that might've closed or connections that like might not work now because I'm not consuming, the stuff doesn't matter. Nope. We scare ourselves with those thoughts. Yep. That's what it is. So you have to just face the fear. We're going to be afraid. It's okay to be afraid. Mm-hmm. But the thing is if you're not afraid, you're never going to prevail from the fear. Mm-hmm. So, I was like, whatever. I'm so nonchalant about a lot of shit, man. Honestly, nowadays, it's like people take stuff way too seriously. I know we're insignificantly significant in the grand scheme of the whole universe, but like people sweat the small stuff. And I heard that so many times growing up from my mother. Don't sweat the small stuff. Don't sweat the small stuff. Literally, people sweat the small stuff every second of their day. The only constant is change, right? Yeah. Well, there's a few other constants that people claim, death and taxes, but taxes are, just a byproduct of the system, right. So like you can't be afraid because every single day, everything around you is changing, whether you think it or not. Everything is different today than it was yesterday. And I've put a lot of stock into today. Not that I'm really totally good at it or not, but I lived my life previously a lot more for the future, and like bigger, better jobs, making more money, bigger, better things and toys and houses and stuff. And now I'm just like, none of that materialistic bullshit is worth it. Like you have today, I have right now with JT. That's all I have. That's all that I'm focused on. And I'm going to put all my time and energy with him right now into this podcast recording. And we're going to have a good time doing it. We're just going to lay it all out on the table. And then whatever I do after this, I'm going to do the same thing, but I'm going to focus a lot of my time and energy and, my self-worth on those things, but just today, because I'm not guaranteed tomorrow. Yeah, sure. I'm only 34 and like I can work out all I want. I can go play hockey every day if I want. And like, I can not drink alcohol and I can eat really well, but all of those things are just factors to the fact that this is still a very fragile vessel. Sure. So I put a lot of stock in today. Once again, like I said, I'm not like a guru by any measure, and I'm not the best at, not still thinking about tomorrow, but tomorrow's not guaranteed. It's probably a pretty good chance that you'll get there, and we can be hopeful about it. And not to get into a super like esoteric philosophical conversation, but dude, I
don't know if you saw my last episode. I'm a big fan of Stoicism. I can go deep, and they do. I hope this doesn't come across bad for any of you. Come on, they don't do a whole lot of downloads. I just love talking about it. Like I can have other ones that I'll get a ton of downloads. I get on Stoicism kicks, man. Everyone's like, "Oh God, here we go again."
Yeah, right. But yeah, man, living for today. That's what I'm all about right here, right now. Just be here now. So
that's cool. Yeah. That's cool. You have any more? Let's talk about the future now. Do you have any more? Any more trips? You mentioned the one that you did with 31 days.
My road trip.
Yeah, you got any more road trips planned?
Nothing big. Honestly, that 31-day road trip was really spontaneous. I kind of thought about it. I didn't really plan it. I just put everything in my Jeep and was self-sufficient. I spent less than $1,200 on the whole trip, and only 125 of that was lodging. I literally slept up in mountain passes in free dispersed camping or BLM, Bureau of Land Management areas.
I know it.
I just mountain biked and just saw the Western United States. It was amazing. So yeah, I mean, I don't really have anything crazy. Actually, I'm leaving this next week. I'm going to Utah for like 5 days, and I'm going to go crush some mountains on my snowboard in Park City. Cool. So that'll be fun. Other than that, my next big trip is with my significant other, and we're going to go. I'm a big Boundary Waters paddler, Boundary Waters canoe wilderness area up in northern Minnesota. I do that a lot. I love to paddle canoe and just be out in the middle of nowhere with no cell service and just live off of what you have. So we're going to do that at the end of May. We have a 10 days in. So 10 days, 9 nights in the middle of the wilderness in northern Minnesota along the Canadian border with nothing but the gear on our back and the canoes and paddles and fishing poles in our hands.
Awesome, man. I see the paddle in the background there. So I thought you could be a paddler. Very cool.
Paddle there, little North Shore, Minnesota there and Lake Superior. Yeah, man.
Hey, if somebody listens to this and they're like, oh, good God, man, I want Spencer to do some marketing for me. How does somebody go about getting in touch with you?
Yeah, for sure. Well, the physical self is Spencer Ploessl and the digital self is spencerploessl.com. Okay. So it's really, really seamless. I literally don't have any other social media channels besides LinkedIn. So if you're searching for me there, just, you can find all my information, my website and stuff from there. You can reach out to me. I have my email, my phone number, everything is live on my website as well as on LinkedIn. But that was another big thing, not to go down another channel, but back in June, I eliminated all social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, Snapchat, the list goes on. And it really cleared up a lot of my free time, the time that I was spending scrolling. We're all guilty of it. We find ourselves sitting on the couch and we're scrolling on Instagram, and 2.5 hours later, we look up from our phones and we're like, oh man, what just happened? Now, I'm not saying Instagram's bad. There's some great content out there, some cool shit that you can look at and find and follow. But at the end of the day, we're wasting inordinate amounts of time sitting inside of our little boxes. We got to get outside more. Got to get outside and unplug from the plugged inness and plug back into our natural world. So I eliminated social. So anyways, yeah, spencerploessl.com is where you can find me if you want to hook up with me.
Yeah, I'm as guilty as anyone else, but so I was coming up, you'll appreciate this. I was trying to make a logo for my nonprofit, and I don't come from that side of the house in any way. So I used one of these services where you put out like a prize, like a ton of people start sending you stuff and then you pick one. And I wanted in Stoicism, they have the symbol of a skull, and it's God, man, it's blown. I can't believe I'm having a brain fart what the actual name is, but it's to remind you that you're going to die. You are going to die, and your time here is limited. So let's try and do what let's try and live your life and get the most out of it. And I always feel a bit of a fraud saying that because I don't follow through with it as much as I would like to, but it's always something I'm definitely always thinking about. And the social media side, I'm low-lying fruit for social media like companies or any type of company because my ADHD brain, they say it just lights up because it's like me likey and I think it's a big part, man. I think it's a huge problem now, and I think there's more of us that need to do it. I have found that cutting out social media, although it's healthy for me, which is the important thing, it doesn't help with trying to start a podcast. It is not beneficial. But oh well. It's not like I was gonna. Well. It's not like I was replacing my income with this, but well, who knows? We'll see where it goes. But yeah, the two, you really, the people that are making the money and getting the most out of it. I mean, they live on that stuff, and it's just not, it's not conducive to me. I'll put it right up there with booze. It's something that it will bring me in, but, Spencer, man, this has been a pleasure. This has been really cool. It's been, I don't know if it would work as well, of making this just my template of how to do things, but I really enjoyed this conversation, man. This has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, man, I appreciate it too, JT. I'm happy that you let it just be organic and free flowing and just literally just like water we created today, just let it flow, man, and it works. It works if you let it be and you believe in it. So it's cool. I appreciate your time today, my friend.
Yeah, sometimes it definitely does. And I'm going to be in touch with you because I come out your way for work quite a bit, and I'm going to hit you up and just at least get me the link or how I can get some of those some lifestyle. No, I'm sorry.
Untitled Art?
Yes, the Untitled Art. Yep.
Yeah, the beers. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, cool.
Cool, man.
All right, man. I will. Thanks again, man. I'll catch you on the flip side.
All right, JT, man.
All right. Thanks, Spencer. Thank you all for listening to this. Please log on to our website, consequenceofhabit.com. Check out what we got going on. Big things in the behind the scenes happening right now. I've got some huge announcements coming up here soon. That's it for me. I will catch you next week.